Yo, what's going on, guys? It is non-reality, and in today's video I am making an updated guide for Succession Berserker PvP. Now, I've already made a Succession Berserker PvP guide, but it was about a year ago at this point, and back when I made it, I honestly wasn't that great at Berserker. I was around 3 to 4 months into the class, but I wanted to get it out there just so I had a video out there for Succession Berserker to kind of get my name out there. But now that I played it a lot longer, I wanted to make a new video. I didn't want to make this video until I felt comfortable enough to actually talk about the class uh as someone who's good at it. And recently I did end up getting Stormtrooper in my last siege that I did, and I'm like, hey, this is a good time now to make a guide on it, because I don't see a lot of Succession Berserkers getting Stormtrooper in siege, at least in cap siege. Uncap's completely different, because a lot of Succession Berserkers are super geared, so at uncapped it's a lot easier to get kills. But in capped I was pretty happy with myself for getting Stormtrooper on Succession Berserker. But before we get into anything, I want to first cover the abilities. Now, this video is going to be breaking down into abilities, and then I'll talk about all my setups like crystals, artifacts, all that stuff. And then later on in the video, after I cover everything for basic PvP, we'll then get into Node War PvP and talk about what I do differently there. Because I know a lot of people that play classes or look up guides for classes are actually looking up guides for Node War specifically, because that is one of the main ways to PvP now, especially since open world's kind of dead with PvP due to the changes. And yeah, just Node War is where all the PvP is focused. So I'm going to be covering that later in the video. So for now, let's talk about the abilities. Now we're basically just taking every ability that is here and we're not locking anything. We used to have to lock something that was under Ultimate Frenzy Destroyer, but they got rid of it and they changed it to a different skill, which is down here, which is now an actual activatable skill instead of like a passive. Along with that, make sure you take Time to Rock. We're not locking that, but that's our Magnus skill. We have our Prime skills. Make sure that you put this one on your hotbar. This is a good health boost in PvP. Then going down, we're not going to lock evasion, although you can for PvP. I still just don't recommend it because you can kind of do like this movement like this. You don't use it a lot, but like sometimes I use it if I'm trying to get somewhere that isn't super far away and I don't want to use like Lava Piercer or something. And then we have our secondary skills, still just taking the primes, not locking anything. And then down here on our passives, make sure you take everything down here. And then for our rage absorption, I recommend so we're talking about uncapped right now, just to keep that clear. For uncapped PvP, where you're going to be taking the all AP plus 30 rage absorption, and then we're going to be locking the crit hit one that switches in capped wars, because the crit hit is not capped, whereas the AP is. And then down here we'll cover this now, even though this is Node War still. So this is like your Node War defensive passives that you can get from using the medals at the shop to buy the books. I would recommend personally, I've actually been messing around with different ones, and I've been actually really liking melee evasion rate. I've tried melee evasion rate, ranged evasion rate is kind of bad. I'm not a huge fan of it. And then magic evasion rate also isn't terrible, but I think melee evasion rate has been keeping me alive the best. And I do take the evasion rate because it is percentage based off instead of just like a flat +5. So yeah, that's why I take that one right there. But you know, if you're versing someone who's more magic focused, if you know which guilds you're versing, you can definitely take magic evasion. I still wouldn't recommend range evasion, even though archers exist and they suck. Next up, we are looking at our skill enhancements. Now for PvP, we're going to be taking Feral Stampede. This is more of a 1v1 skill because it is completely unprotected, but it's a nice stiffen to catch people off guard. It's also just decent for movement as well. Next up, we have Wailing Beast. This is one of our protected heals. And then you can take Frenzied Winds. Every single time I make a video and I talk about this right here, everyone's like, I take Frenzied Winds. So you definitely can take Frenzied Winds. I personally just don't like it. So I just take Frenzy Tyrant, which I also just don't use. I basically just don't use either of these. But you can check out Frenzy Winds if you like it. If not, you can also take Frenzy Tyrant. I will say, if you're not going to use Frenzy Winds, I would recommend using Frenzy Tyrant, just because you can accidentally proc it with LMB in different things like Feral Stampede, Wailing Beast, and Acts of Destruction. So just so that it's not even a possibility, I would take Frenzy Tyrant if you don't feel like using Frenzy Winds. Now for the skill add-ons, these are my personal uncapped add-ons. I'll basically go through why I have everything here. So Fearsome Tyrant is our 100%, which is the big stomping thing. I don't have 100%, but it looks like that, and it'll just do more stomps if it's 100%. And I have plus DP and then minus DP. One thing you can do is 10 HP absorption per hit. That's what I use in capped. And then I would recommend If you don't want to use minus 15 DP, you can use something like minus evasion or plus accuracy. I would go like minus evasion, because you're basically using this skill as a debuffer and a stun skill for large groups of people. Next up, we have Fear Strike. This is our RMB, which is this skill right here. We're using this mostly in our combos, because basically if someone resists one of your CCs, you can actually use the claws to re-CC them, or at least like do a little bit of a CC break. It's I'll talk about it later, but it's kind of confusing. I'd recommend going crit hit rate though and minus 15 DP. Now, like I said with the first one, you can kind of switch these all out for what you use where, because everyone plays Berserker a bit differently, but I'm just showing you what I personally do. Next up, we have Predatory Hunt. I use attack casting speed and 150 bleed. I think this skill's really good, especially with mouse movement, to kind of keep pressure on your target. Because if you land on them, you're applying bleed, and then you're also giving yourself attack speed to then chase them down or whatever you want to do. Next up, we have Raging Thunder. Now, I put on human damage and crit hit rate. This is like our main damage skill, and it doesn't have 100% crit hit in PvP, so I like having the crit hit rate on. If you are running some sort of other build that somehow has more crit rate, you can change this to crit damage. I've been using crit damage in Capped, and it's actually been working really well. Next up, we have the Ancient Wave. This is one of your biggest hitting skills, so we're going to put a down attack and crit hit damage. I'm pretty sure it is a 100% crit hit rate. Yes, it is. And then last but not least is Prime Devastation. Now, this is basically our slow skill. It does do minus 30% slow and attack and castle speed and movement speed, and then we can stack it with even more minus movement speed to make sure they are insanely slow. So now that we got our add-ons out of the way for Uncapped, we will be talking about the crystals for Uncapped. So for Uncapped PvP, I recommend running something like this. Now, this is a full kind of DR set, but I think this build works really well. You still are able to do enough damage to kill people with Maneuver, but you're not squishy enough to where you'll die in a skill or two. I do run Ignore Grapple Resistance, but if you want to go for full tank, you can actually change these for more DR or maybe some more HP. That's up to you. But I definitely recommend running the For Whom combo with a Heytaste tier at the very least. I also like stacking on some accuracy with the Visionary L-Cars, or just regular L-Cars if you can't get the Visionary ones. And then we want to get some Vipers for even more accuracy. We have the Bitters. Bitters are just really good. Most classes, even like full human damage classes, sometimes run Bitters just because of how much they give defensive wise. It is really nice. And then we run the Spec Evasion. I think basically every class needs to run Spec Evasion. It is one of the most broken defensive stats in the game, and it's just really good to use. But yeah, these are the crystals that I run, and yeah, they are pretty nice, and they do keep me alive. If you don't run these crystals and you PvP a lot on Berserker, you'll notice a lot of the time when you're doing your jumps, if you're versing someone who's pretty geared, you'll just end up dying in your jumps. Or if you do like a heal, you'll end up dying in your heal. But with the DR crystals, you actually don't end up dying. And with our Nuver, we're running around 320 AP. I'm still not like insanely geared, but yeah, we'll be able to get around 320 AP with around 401 DP once you get everything a bit more geared up than I am. So now that we have the crystals out of the way, for artifacts, I'd personally run Untouchable if you are doing open world PvP. Untouchable's an insane tank thing. It does all damage reduction 15, all evasion 27, max HP 150, and you get a 2% special attack evasion rate. 2% doesn't seem that high, but the thing about it is you're going to be stacking a ton of special attack evasion rate with this, and then your crystals, and then any sort of perfumes that might have it. So you can get all the way up to like 30 to 40% special attack evasion rate, which is huge. It is one of the highest, like the best stats for actually tanking damage. But yeah, I recommend running the all damage reduction. Now, next up, we want to talk about is the movement. Now, this is the next thing. This is basically the section where we're going to actually start talking about skills. And then later on, like I said, I'll go back into the cap note war section at the end of the video. So for our movement in PvP, it is very similar to our movement in PvE because Berserker doesn't have a ton of movement to begin with. I would recommend that if you're chasing someone that is pretty far away, you don't want to use all your movement that's protected, which is why I recommend doing this crab walk type thing right here. It's a pretty simple thing, and if you watch my Awakening PvP video, it's exactly the same as Awaken PvP. You're basically just doing W-RMB for the first headbutt, and then into an F, which is your Storming Beast. It does a flow, and then you're basically just pressing evasion at the end. Looks something like that, and you just keep doing it over and over and over again. And as you can see, it barely uses up any stamina. You'd have to do it like 100 times to actually run out of stamina. And then next up, we'll talk about our protected evasion, because I think that's basically it for the unprotected evasion or unprotected movement. Next up, we have the Lava Piercer. This is just our general skill that we're going to be using for a lot of catches and to chase people down in a close proximity. So you have your normal Lava Piercer, and then you have a blue version, which is like your Prime Lava Piercer, which is a lot slower, but it also is protected. And then with Lava Piercer, you can actually use Pred Hunt as well, which is SF, and Lava Piercer is shift space. I forgot to mention that. So you can do shift space into SF to do a large jump. This is a really good way to catch people off guard, and there actually is a CC on the Pred Hunt. If you land on someone, you can actually bound them. So if you jump onto someone and they're not protected, you can just knock them down on the ground and then follow up from there. But yeah, that skill is really good. And there's a couple things about that are actually really good about it, is that it does a lot of damage. Your Pred Hunt is actually one of your biggest damaging skills, especially in large AoE groups. And then on top of that, it is completely protected the whole time, and you can actually mouse move this skill. So if you're running at someone, let's say this is a person right here, and you jump past them, you can actually mouse move backwards and then blow up on them like that. Now, you're going to hear me talk about mouse movement a lot, and that's just because it is a very important thing for Succession Berserker. A lot of people have this notion that Succession Berserker is a really easy class to play, and yes, in a generic sense, it is one of the easier classes ability-wise, but technical-wise, it is actually very hard because of mouse moving and flowing everything properly. It's just a different set of skills compared to other classes that are more about actual abilities and when to press them and whatnot. So now that we have Lava Piercer out of the way and we have Pred Hunt out of the way, there's a few other movements that you can do, nothing crazy. The one you can do is Weakling Hunt. Now this is Shift F. You're going to be doing all of these things in beast form, by the way. Your Shift F is a forward guarded knockback skill. As you can see, it knockbacks the target a little bit. So you can actually use this skill when you're chasing someone down. If they have a forward guard up, you can Weakling Hunt and then, it didn't work. You can Weakling Hunt and then mouse move behind them, and it actually goes through their forward guard if you do it correctly. So it's a really nice skill to catch people off guard. If you ever fight a Berserker, you'll see them do that a ton. They'll just run around you and do it around you constantly to try to get you with a knockback and then hit you with a KD. On top of that, our last skill for movement is our Tackling Rock, which is our WF. The skill is on cooldown or off cooldown, it is forward guarded, but then on cooldown, you can still use it, but it's not forward guarded. But I like using this skill to catch people off guard for grabs, because you can actually just Tackling Rock right into a grab, which is really nice. Now that's basically all of our movement. Now I want to say that all of this stuff will be in the description for all the movement and all the combos, just in case I do confuse people. It'll all be down there. It'll be down there in the ability names and also the keyboard combos. That way, if there's any controller players, they can also figure it out with the ability names. So now that we got the movement out of the way, I'm going to talk about neutral. As if you guys ever see my videos before, you really, I really like using or talking about neutrals, because neutral is a big part of PvP in this game. And basically, what I mean by neutral is how you're going to be staying alive, how you're going to be SA rotating, and which abilities you're going to be doing when you're not catching someone with a grab or something like that. So for Berserker, a lot of our super armor and movement abilities is our Pred Hunt and our leaps, along with our shake off, which is A-Rmb or D-Rmb, which is a PvP iframe. And then basically just going back in the Lava Piercer. And then if you do run out of those Lava Piercer and Pred Hunt, you're just going to be doing like your S block or Tackling Rock, Weakling Hunt, anything that's a forward guard. On Berserker, you don't really want to stand still too long. If you do something like WC, which is our Devastation, it can apply a slow to someone, which is really nice, but you got to be really careful, especially if you're fighting a grab class. Berserker's abilities are pretty long, and you actually can't cancel out of some of them. Like that, you can't cancel out of that. You can cancel out that one, but it still takes a bit to cancel out of. But yeah, a lot of our movement is through our Lava Piercer, or a lot of our neutrals through our Lava Piercer and our Pred Hunt. As you can see, I can do the triple jump Pred Hunt from just doing SF without Lava Piercer. Go back into Lava Piercer again. Maybe I'm out of stuff, so now I do an S block real quick, waits for stuff to come up, go back into Pred Hunt. And if they are pressuring you hard, you are just going to be going for like like knockbacks and grabs and stuff, so you wouldn't really have to worry about your neutral too much if they are really hard pressing. Your neutral's mainly for if you're versing someone who's trying to space you out really far, and that's when you're going to run them down with your Lava Piercer and Pred Hunt to actually try to get close enough, but you want to stay protected so they don't knock you out of it. If you're versing like an Archer or a Ranger, it is really common for them to just run away and just keeps hitting you with stiffs until you sooner or later get caught by it. Luckily, Berserker does have enough SAs and forward guards to where that shouldn't be an issue, and you should be able to run them down and grab them in time, but that just takes a lot of practice. Now, next up, we're going to be talking about the combos for Berserker. Now, a lot of Berserker's combos are super similar, and I also do combos a bit different than some people. What I mean by this, I'll address it real quick. Some people, they like doing grab, and then when they do this, you can actually hold down F, and it does like this Storming Beast flow to pre-apply Storming Beast before you start your combo. I will say right now, I personally do not like that, so if you're a person that uses that, just know that I'm not a huge fan of it. Mainly because I'm pretty sure it doesn't work. I could be completely wrong, but it doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work with your Rock Smash. It only works with your Smackdown. So I just don't like having to like defer between the two and like change it up every time. I'd rather do something like a grab into a Frenzy Destroyer, then F, and then Headbutt for the re-KD. But yeah, let's get into these combos. So basically, all of our combos are going to start from a grab, at least the ones I'm going to talk about right now. Basically, we're going to be doing a grab, and then from there we have two options. We can do our grab cancel, which is just A-L-M-B, or we can follow it up with a grab into an RMB into a space, and then this will apply all of the debuffs that these abilities grab. So Undertaker, you get melee AP for melee AP plus 8 for 10 seconds. And then you'll get the Corpse Storm buffs, any that this one gives. Also, you'll get the damage from the two. But I would only use this if you're doing like 1v1s, and even then, it's still iffy depending on how much like time you have between you CCing them and them actually getting up. But if you're in like a large fight, I recommend just doing that and then following up your combo with something that is protected. But let's talk about 1v1s first. That way we can kind of break this down. If we're in a 1v1 scenario, we're going to be, first of all, going for a grab, however you get that off. And then we're going to be doing RMB space. Then from there, we're going to be doing Frenzy Destroyer, which is our S-Lmb-Rmb for the last hit. And then from there, we're going to be hitting F. That is our Storming Beast flow right there. And with Storming Beast, we're going to be applying accuracy rate along with casting speed and attack speed and melee evasion rate minuses and movement speed minuses as well. So it's just a really good debuffer. So we're going to be doing FD, F, and then from there we're going to be doing Headbutt. Headbutt is a really nice KD that flows really well. And as you guys might know, KD is one of the longest CCs in the game, which is why we want to finish our CC cap with a KD to give us the most amount of time possible for doing damage. Now with that, it also does give us a plus 15% melee accuracy rate buff, which is super nice for versing classes that maybe have a bit more evasion than you're actually able to handle by yourself. So the accuracy rate does help there. And we also do get a melee AP plus 16 from our Frenzy Destroyer, which I didn't say earlier, which is really nice. So what I would normally do from here, it honestly depends on which class I'm fighting and if I know the matchup to the point to see if they have like ignore resist or something. If I'm fighting someone that I know just doesn't have a lot of ignore resist, what I'll do is I'll just do that combo into a ancient wave into a spin. This will do a ton of damage, and then at the end, if you don't see them die, you can cancel your Raging Thunder early, and you can actually hit them with a Devastation. And what that will do is that will give them movement speed debuff, so you can then run them down afterwards and grab them again, or hit them with a knockdown. Now, if the class is a bit more is more heavily built into ignore resist, or you know the person is more built into ignore resist, usually like DR classes are heavier into the ignore resist than full AP classes, you'll want to do something like this, and then you'll want to hit them with a claws, because what will happen is if they resist the KD from Headbutt, but you hit them with a claws, they'll actually get floated. And then from there, you do have time to do like an ancient wave into a spin, but you'll have less time since it is a float and not a KD. But it works pretty well. And basically, you'll be doing these same combos if you hit them with our Rock Smash as well, which is our other grab, which is our Shift F, or Shift E, sorry, Shift E. That also works pretty well with the same combo. There isn't really much of a change with Rock Smash. Now, Some other combos that we can talk about are combos that aren't based off of getting a grab. Like I talked about earlier, we have the Feral Stampede. This is a really good skill to stiffen the person to give you enough time to CC them. I like using this in a scenario where if someone is S blocking, you can mouse move behind them with Shift X, and then from there you can hit them with a Ancient Wave to KD them, and then do some abilities, and then finish off with a Raging Thunder. So if I did catch someone with a stiff, what I would personally do is, once this comes up, I would do something along the lines of stiffen into a headbutt, into an Ancient Wave, into a spin. That way they are KD'd for the last hit. We do get the Ancient Wave, and they're already on the ground, so we'll get the Ancient Wave down attack damage to do big damage there, and then we'll hit them off with a Raging Thunder at the end to hopefully finish them. If not, like I said, you can cancel early and hit them with a Devastation to keep them on the ground longer. Or not to keep them on the ground longer, but to keep them debuffed so you can run them down. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is for KD catch combos is our Ancient Wave. Now, this isn't a good habit to have, but if you know what you're doing, sometimes you can actually throw out Ancient Wave at a longer range to KD them. Now, this is very like iffy because Zerker doesn't have a lot of damage in their kit. Now, I know that might trigger a lot of people. People might be like, "Oh, that's crazy. What do you mean Zerker has a ton of damage? Every single time I get hit by a Zerker, I instantly die." But although we do have a lot of damage, we don't have a lot of damaging skills. Our only two main damaging skills are our Ancient Wave and our Spin. So if we're using one of them for a catch early, we're not getting the full damage out of it because we're not getting the down attack damage. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be hitting them with an Ancient Wave, and then we're going to be running at them and then doing another KD. Also, you can throw some stuff in between it. So one new ability that we have is tackling the, what's it called? Still new. Quaking Fury. So this right here, if we do a tackling rock into an LMB, it does this really cool ability, and this ability actually does a decent amount of damage. So what I've been doing lately is hitting them with this and then doing that right there, and then KDing them into a spin. Actually does a decent amount of damage, and probably won't kill them because you've used your Ancient Wave early, but it still does a decent amount of damage to get them really low. And that actually brings up another point, is if you are trying to fight someone and you get them low, but they're not completely dead yet, this is where you're going to chase them down with Pred Hunt, and then you're going to do the last hit of Pred Hunt, which is just holding down SF to do the explosion, and then from there you should probably kill them because it does a ton of damage. But yeah, that's basically it for the main combos. Now, like I've said before, and like it's in the Zerker Discord and it's everywhere, Zerker is a very play-by-play sort of class. There's a lot of things you can do on Zerker, like doing your Weakling Hunt into an Ancient Wave, or doing a jump bound into an Ancient Wave, or doing grab combo maybe even a bit differently. It's all up to you on how you want to play the class. The things I told you are just like your general combos and that you can work off of yourself. But yeah, I hope this part did help you guys learn the combos, because like I said, there are some intricacies to it, but nothing too crazy. Just play around with it and see what works for you, which flows good for you. Because I know a lot of people actually don't like that doesn't flow for them very well. This little pre-buff that I do. I've tried to teach a lot of people it, and a lot of people just end up like jumping and stuff like that. And you don't have to do that pre-buff. You can definitely switch it up a bit and see what works for you. All you got to know that is these abilities are the pre-buff abilities, and then you can work around that to see how you want to do it yourself. Whether that be doing the grab thing that I showed earlier. Like I said, some people do that I'm not a huge fan of, where you grab them and then you hold down F, and then from there you can do FD into headbutt. So you could just switch it up a bit there. It went away because I took it too far from this post, but yeah, you can do something like that. So now that we have the movement, the neutral, and the combos out of the way, we're going to be getting into the capped portion for like Node Wars. So let's start off again with our skill enhancements. The only thing that changes here actually in our abilities is we're going to be swapping our rage absorption to crit hit rate, just because crit hit rate isn't capped in capped wars. And then for our skill enhancements, we're going to be going over to this build right here. Now, personally, I just take Feral Rage because in capped wars, you're doing a lot of structure damage, and this ability does a ton of hits. So I like using it to when I jump on like a recov or a flame tower and just spinning, because this ability Shift X actually just goes off your stamina. So if you're like not getting contested, you can literally just sit on a recovery center and just keep hitting it over and over and over until it goes down. But you know, if you want to use Feral Stampede, you still can for movement. I wouldn't use it in a ball for any sort of stiffen or anything. We're gonna keep Wailing Beast for the heal, and then I keep Frenzy Tyrant just because I don't like Frenzied Winds. For skill add-ons, we are gonna switch this up a bit. Obviously, we can't use any like flat stat add-ons because they're all capped. What we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be still taking a Fearsome Tyrant, which is our 100%, which you should be using almost every single push in a capped war. We have all evasion rate minus 4%, and then instant recovery 10%. This actually is huge. Every single time I've gone into war and haven't had this, I feel like I die way quicker. But with this, you die way less often. And then you have the all evasion rate just to help your teammates actually get the kills. Because with Fearsome Tyrant, you aren't looking for kills. You're just looking for stiffens for your ball to actually follow up on. Because it doesn't do that much damage. Next up, we have FD. I have this for stealing kills, actually, because it actually does a lot of damage. If you just run over to someone who's already down and just hit him with this, you can definitely steal some kills, especially with down attack and crit hit damage. Because it has a extra attack crit hit rate of 15%, and with our already stacked crit hit rate, we should be close to 100%. Next up, we have Pred Hunt. This actually stays the same from capped to uncapped. We just go attack speed and bleed, because bleed's still pretty good in Node War, even with some of the changes. Next up, we have Raging Thunder. I take crit hit rate and crit hit damage. I noticed it actually works really well, and I do get a lot of secured kills with Raging Thunder. Ancient Wave does also stay the same. We take the down attack damage and the crit hit damage. Devastation, I've actually been running something different than this. I just haven't saved it. What I actually been running is all evasion rate plus 4%. And then I keep the minus movement speed actually to use in the middle of a ball to slow a bunch of people. So it would look something like this. So we go with the all evasion rate because Berserker doesn't have max capped evasion rate, just because evasion rate's just based off of class specific passives and whatnot. And then we are going to be taking the minus movement speed. If you're jumping into a middle of a ball and you just can't find a way out, you can just hit a devastation. It'll give you a little bit more tankiness while helping your ball finish the kills, because they'll be a lot slower and won't be able to back up in time. But yeah, that's it for the skill add-ons. Now for the artifacts and crystals, we're going to be just running HP to stack full HP as much as you can. We got the HP artifacts with the 4 heart for even more HP. And then for our crystals, we are going to be running an HP stack. I run something like this. This isn't full HP stack. You definitely can get higher HP, but I actually don't hit the tier 4 accuracy caps without the L-cars, so I do run the L-cars still. I think you probably could run Vipers, but I like the ignore all resist for 10%, because I think tier 4 does not have a resistance cap. And then I run the corrupted magic crystals just for the extra crit hit damage. It is actually a lot of crit hit damage, and it does help you secure a lot of kills. And then we're still running the spec evasions because it is capped at 20% for most of the caps. And then on tier 4, I think it goes to just completely uncapped for spec evasion. But for tier 3, tier 2, and tier 1, you're going to be running spec evasion. You can run a lower version of spec evasion. You can run like a Bon or a Wand. They do have the same amount of spec evasion rate. The only thing that changes is the HP. And one thing I do want to mention, because mainly this stuff is based around tier 3, but if you're in tier 1 or tier 2, HP is capped. So you're not going to be running something like this, but you're going to be running a very generic crystal set. So just ask your guild what they're running, because almost everyone in tier 1 and tier 2 run the exact same crystals and the exact same artifacts, because there isn't really much of a variance that you can actually do, because a lot of that stuff is capped insanely low. You'll basically be running siege evasion. You can actually run siege evasion in this build as well if you want to. I haven't really found a use for it. I think this is just a lot better. But you'll run something like siege evasion. You'll run a bunch of stamina crystals, and you'll run stamina artifacts. But yeah, so some main skills I want to talk about for Node War scenario. It doesn't change much. Obviously, you're not going to be going for a lot of grabs in a Node War scenario. The only time you'll be going for a grab is if a Berserker jumps in and they do their 100% or their 200%. You'll be going for a grab on them just to help your ball out. Other than that, you're not really going to be using grabs too often. Your main thing that you're going to be doing on Berserker is your caller is going to call to go in. You're going to jump in with Pred Hunt, do as much damage as possible, and then from there, there's a couple things you could do. You can 100% or 200% if you have that available. if not, what I like doing is like storming to the back line or lava piercing to the back line, and then weakling hunting and just throwing as much CC and movement speed reduction as I can. And then from there, if I'm still alive, usually I'm still alive because my positioning is pretty decent, I would like to say. I'll run back over to my back line because as a Zerker, you do have like the ability to have a lot of movement. So you're going to be the person that is basically engaging, and then you're going to be helping your back line, and then you're going to be peeling. You're going to be doing a lot of stuff that isn't just jump in, hit some people and die, or just peeling. You're going to be doing a lot of stuff. You're going to be jumping in, doing damage, running back line, trying to peel for your casters and your archers. And then from there, you can look for some kills. Mainly your kills are going to just be coming from your Pred Hunt and then also your spin. And then a few kills might be coming from Ancient Wave, but you got to be careful with that in large groups because you'll get knocked from behind. But yeah, that's basically your role as Zerker and the abilities that you're going to be using. Yeah, I hope this video did help you guys learn Zerker PvP a bit better. I know this video wasn't as in-depth as some other guides for Zerker, but I try to keep my stuff simple. I don't want to overload your brains with a bunch of useless info that honestly doesn't matter, and you'll learn it on your own. As long as you have the basics, I think you could learn Zerker pretty easily, and everyone plays it differently, so I can tell you some stuff that I do, but it might not help you in the long run. Yeah, if you did like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.